You're 31 and burned out from back-to-back Zoom calls when you meet her at a trade fair in Frankfurt. She's standing beside a scale model of an industrial heat pump, explaining its thermal efficiency to a room of engineers, and she is somehow the most captivating person you have ever seen near industrial equipment. She speaks 4 languages. Her English has an accent that sounds like precision made human. 3 months later, you're together. 8 months after that, she suggests Stuttgart. Your friends back home receive this the way people receive lottery results. German woman, engineering culture, Autobahn, order. Everything works. You're a naturally organized person after all. You believe in systems. You like things to function correctly. You have read that Germans are efficient and serious, and you consider yourself efficient and serious, and you think this is going to be straightforward. You have no idea what you're about to become. The first sign that you've underestimated everything arrives before you've even unpacked. You need to register your address. In Germany, you must formally notify the government that you live where you live. This is called the Anmeldung, and it requires an appointment at the Einwohnermeldeamt. The appointment is not available this week. Not next week. You book it 6 weeks out and feel grateful. You arrive with 3 documents. You need 4. You return the following Tuesday with 4. 1 is the wrong format, not wrong information. Wrong format, which is a different and considerably worse category of failure. By the time your Anmeldung is complete, you have visited the same office 3 times and feel you've been inducted into a program, which in a sense you have. Then comes the marriage paperwork. Back home, this would have been a form at the county clerk's office, done before lunch. Here you need something called an Eheverkehrsaisonnis, a certificate from your home country confirming you are legally capable of getting married. Not willing, not ready. Legally capable. This document must be apostilled. You Google apostle. It is a real word, a real process, and a real requirement involving government offices on 2 separate continents. It takes 11 weeks. You were expecting 2. Her parents receive you formally. Her father extends his hand and says your surname with the gravity of a judge, acknowledging someone whose file he has not yet reviewed, not unfriendly, precise. Her mother offers coffee and a specific cake associated with the occasion, which you discover afterward carries a specific expected response. You accept 3 pieces because you are American and enthusiastic, and it hasn't occurred to you yet that one was correct. Your wife explains this on the drive home without irritation. The way you'd explain to someone that a stop sign means stop as information that simply hadn't reached them yet. It registers that way, as information. Every interaction you are beginning to understand contains a rule that nobody thought to mention in advance. You survived the paperwork. Then came the actual wedding. The German wedding has rituals you have not encountered in any romantic comedy. The night before the ceremony, her friends and family gather outside the house and smash porcelain on the doorstep. Not accidentally. Deliberately, as a group, with plates someone brought specifically for this. You are handed one and indicated you should throw it. You throw it. It makes a satisfying sound and feels mildly illegal. Then everyone sweeps up the pieces together, because the cleaning is part of the ritual, not its aftermath. You stand in someone's front garden at 10 o'clock on a Friday night sweeping ceramic with people you met 3 hours ago and think, this is either the most absurd thing you've ever done or the most sensible. Possibly both. This is the Polteraband, and it works. The ceremony is short and exact. No slideshows, no roasts, no visual aids of any kind. Her uncle stands up and tells the room that you appear to be a man who does what he promises. That is the speech. You sit waiting for the pivot, the anecdote, the reframe. There is none. You learn afterward this was considered quite generous. Then the Baumstammsägen. You and your wife are handed a 2-handled saw and a log and expected to cut through it together in front of everyone present. The symbolism is explicit. Obstacles will exist, and you will solve them together, and neither of you can manage it alone. The guests watch with the focused intensity of people who are genuinely evaluating your marriage in real time, because they are. It takes 7 minutes. Nobody looks away for 7 minutes. The applause when you finish is measured the kind that acknowledges a threshold passed, not a performance enjoyed. The reception ends at 10:30. Not a last call. Done. Contractual end time, noise ordinance, and a shared understanding that tomorrow exists and everyone will be in it. You watch your guests queue for their coats with the quiet efficiency of a train platform and are genuinely uncertain whether you are impressed or bereaved. Both, you decide. Both seems accurate. You survive the wedding. She shows you the bins. The apartment is small and organized with an intentionality that borders on philosophy. Every drawer has a function, every function a designated space. You open one looking for batteries and find only batteries. The realization arrives quietly. You have been generating disorder in your kitchen drawers your entire adult life and nobody mentioned it until now. Then she shows you the bins. There are 4. The bioton is for food waste. The papeton is for paper and cardboard. The Gelbersack is for packaging carrying the green dot symbol, which is its own classification system you will need to learn separately. The Restmüll is for everything that doesn't qualify as the other 3, which turns out to be a more precise and demanding category than it sounds. She hands you a laminated reference card, not as a joke, as a practical resource because she knows you will need it, and there is no reason to make an avoidable process harder than it already is. You make your first mistake within 48 hours. You put a pizza box in the Popperton. Pizza boxes with grease on the bottom are Restmüll. She explains this the way you'd explain that a locked door requires a key calmly, without irritation, as though the relevant information simply hadn't reached you yet, which was accurate. You add it to the laminated card in pencil. Ruhezeit exists. Quiet hours. No loud noise before 8 a.m., after 10 p.m., or between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. Absolutely none on Sunday, which in Germany is protected by something that sits between municipal ordinance and deeply held cultural conviction. You discover this on a Sunday morning when you collect the vacuum from the hall cupboard. She removes it from your hands with the calm precision of someone preventing a situation from escalating. You are about to violate the building, the neighbors, and Sunday itself, which here is a discrete and enforceable concept. Sunday, you learn, is closed. If you needed something and failed to purchase it on Saturday, that is a planning failure, and Monday will come in due course. You learn to shop on Saturday. You learn to think ahead. You begin to wonder how many other areas of your life have been running on the assumption that things will simply be available when you want them. Then you start work. You find work at a mid-sized engineering consultancy in Stuttgart. The office is orderly. The coffee machine requires a specific card. And in your first team review, a senior analyst reads through your proposal and informs you it has 3 fundamental structural flaws, which he then lists numbered, in order, without preamble. You sit very still. You are fairly certain you are being fired. You are not being fired. This is how a Tuesday afternoon works here. The 3 flaws are accurate, and by the end of the week you have addressed all of them, which was the entire purpose of the exchange. In your previous job, this kind of feedback took 20 minutes to excavate from underneath several layers of encouragement. Here it took 45 seconds and came with numbered items. Not because the system is unkind, because it assumes you are capable of receiving accurate information and doing something with it. That is a different assumption than the one you grew up with, and adjusting to it takes longer than you expect. The formal address takes 3 months. You call your manager Herr Becker. He calls you by your first name. The asymmetry is never explained. Then one morning in March, in the corridor near the kitchen, he says you may call him Klaus, once, quietly, in passing. Something in how he says it measured, deliberate. The way he'd say anything that actually means something tells you this is not a casual remark. You receive it like a promotion, because that is what it is. You understand for the first time that he has been watching and deciding, and has decided something in your favor. Meetings begin at the stated time. Exactly. The 9 a.m. meeting begins at 9 a.m. You arrive at 9:01 a.m. twice in your first month. You are the last one there both times. You set 3 alarms. You arrive at 8:54 a.m. and are still second to last. Feierabend is a concept you cannot translate but are required to respect. The working day ends at a defined threshold. At 5:30 a.m., people leave not because they don't care, but because Feierabend is where work ends and life begins. And treating that line as negotiable is not dedication. It is dysfunction. You email a colleague at 7 p.m. and receive a reply the next morning. No apology. The border requires none. You have been reading every signal backwards. What felt like hostility was information. What felt like rigidity was design. But here's what nobody explains before you move to Germany. Directness is not coldness. It took approximately 14 months to understand this properly. And the understanding doesn't come from being told it. It accumulates through repetition until it reorganizes everything before it. When your colleague told you your proposal had 3 structural flaws, he was not being aggressive. He was treating you as someone capable of receiving accurate information and improving. Places where everyone says things are great when they clearly aren't don't have better manners. They have worse honesty. Once you register this not as a concept but as a felt experience, the first 14 months of your working life here reassemble themselves into a different shape. The directness wasn't a problem you were managing. It was professional respect you'd been misreading as aggression. Your wife operates the same way, and once you see it, you cannot stop seeing it. When she says dinner is good, she means dinner is good. Not great, not extraordinary good. She doesn't produce enthusiasm she doesn't feel, which means when she does produce it, it's the real thing at its actual size. You make pasta one Thursday evening and she says, without looking up from her book, that it's quite good actually. You nearly call your mother, not because the praise was large, because it was exact, and exactly sized praise from her is the premium denomination. Her father's handshake tells you when you've been received. For the first year it was formal, brief. In the second year the grip holds half a second longer, slightly warmer. Nothing is said about it. The handshake is the receipt. Then there's the decoded language which runs opposite to everything you were trained in. When someone here says your plan is interesting, they find it interesting. When they say a report is solid, it is solid. When she says she's fine, she is fine. No signal codes for something else. I'm not being funny, but means nothing here, nobody is. With all due respect contains actual respect. I'll think about it means she will think about it and tell you what she decides. The whole system, once you see it, is surprisingly restful. Nobody is managing you. Nobody is performing. The warmth was there the whole time. It simply required evidence before it would offer itself. Months pass and the absorption begins to happen without announcement. You separate your recycling with a focus that would have seemed excessive to your former self. You Google the rules when unsure. You feel something close to genuine discomfort when you see cardboard near the wrong bin, not from fear of consequences, but from the simpler sense that the system is correct, and choosing to undermine it is choosing to make things less correct. You don't laminate anything, but you think about it. You wait at crosswalks. This is the one that surprises you most when you notice it. At 2 a.m., on a street where no car has passed in 4 minutes, the light is red, and you wait, not from fear of the fine, from something harder to articulate a sense that someone designed this intersection with care, and that defaulting to the design is a small act of respect for that effort. You notice yourself thinking this on a Tuesday night and recognize it immediately. It is a very German thought. You are thinking it without irony. You bring cake to the office on your own birthday. This is the practice. The birthday person provides, the office receives. No surprise to organize. No risk of being forgotten. No performance of gratitude required. You carry it in on a Tuesday morning, send a brief email, put the tin in the kitchen. The logic is entirely sound once you stop expecting the alternative. At some point, you simply stop. American friends visit in September. They say you seem calmer. One says you seem more serious. Another says you've gotten a little German, man offered as an observation, which is slightly also a criticism. You say nothing. Somewhere in the past year, you started using silence the way your German colleagues do, not as discomfort, not as evasion, but as punctuation. The pause is the answer. Your friend takes it in and moves on. Your wife looks at you one evening across the kitchen, and in her expression there is neither surprise nor pride exactly, just a clear and quiet recognition. She sees what has happened to you. She is not particularly surprised. She goes back to what she was doing. Then you fly home for Thanksgiving, and everything you have quietly, carefully become walks with you into the country you came from. The airport is where it starts. The cues in the terminal are approximate a collective gesture toward order rather than order itself. The flight board's late, and the gate agent announces this with the cheerful energy of someone framing a shared inconvenience as an adventure. In Stuttgart, a delayed departure is communicated with the measured seriousness of a structural problem being managed. Here it is announced like weather unfortunate, communal, essentially fine. You stand in the boarding queue and feel something tighten in you that you can't immediately name. Your brother picks you up from the airport. He is 20 minutes late and mentions it only to reference traffic, which dissolves the 20 minutes into conditions beyond anyone's specific control. No amended ETA sent at the 13-minute mark. No accounting. You tell him it's fine. You mean it's slightly less than you would have 4 years ago, and you say nothing about the difference. Dinner with your parents goes sideways in a particular way. Your mom asks if you love the new kitchen renovation. You look at it carefully and tell her the storage layout is efficient and the workflow is a genuine improvement. She waits. She wants love. You gave her calibrated truth at the precise level of your actual feeling, and she reads it as withholding. You are deploying words incorrectly in your native language. The scale is miscalibrated. A former colleague asks your read on a project. You give it directly 3 issues, logically ordered. A silence follows of a kind you can no longer accurately classify. Someone says, "Great feedback, thanks." You cannot determine whether this is true or diplomatic, and you used to know instantly, and that instinct has quietly left you. At a bar on Friday, your friends are warm and optimistic in the way that 4 years ago felt like home. Someone proposes Vegas next summer. The table agrees completely. You ask what dates. The energy shifts. Nobody had arrived at dates. The trip exists at the level of shared enthusiasm and will dissolve into the group chat by Sunday. And everyone understands this implicitly, and you have spent 4 years somewhere that does not operate this way. And you can no longer participate in intention-free enthusiasm without feeling you are performing something you've forgotten the words to. Your mom cries at the airport when you leave. She says you've gotten very German. She means it as a loss. You hug her and don't argue. The flight leaves in 92 minutes, and you have already calculated your walking time to the gate. The plane takes off. You feel something release in your chest that you don't examine too closely. The plane lands in Stuttgart on a gray Tuesday afternoon. The signage is correct. The S-Bahn arrives on the stated minute. You take it and watch the familiar city pass in the rain and feel something come to rest in your chest that you cannot name in either of the 2 languages you now move between. Imperfectly in the space between. The apartment is exactly as you left it. The bins where they belong. The good knife on the magnetic strip above the counter. She's made tea the right kind from the correct drawer and asks about the trip while putting your jacket in the cupboard where jackets go, because in this apartment things have places and being put in the right place is not pedantry, it is care. She listens without interrupting, not performing attention, actually attending. You know the difference now? You try to explain what it felt like to be foreign in the country you grew up in. Your mother's kitchen feeling like somewhere to adjust to. The bar feeling manic, the enthusiasm genuine but untethered from any specific intention. Giving direct feedback and getting a silence you couldn't classify. Sitting at the airport with 92 minutes to your flight feeling, underneath the sadness of leaving, something that resembled relief. That part was the hardest to say. She listens to all of it. When you finish, she says it sounds like it was difficult. Precise. Correct. Not reframed, not softened into a broader observation, not folded into encouragement. Difficult. Named, set down, left to be what it is. An American friend would have said something like, "So basically you're German now," and meant it warmly, and it would have been neither accurate nor useful. She identifies the experience as what it was and lets the silence sit with you. Then she asks if you regret coming. You think about it the way you've learned to hear, not immediately, not to fill the space, but actually. You think about the Anmeldung and the 6 weeks and the wrong format, the Apostle and the 11 weeks, the 4 bins and the laminated card, the Sunday vacuum, the neighbor who knocked and brought a printed copy of the building regulations because they thought it might help, Herbecker and then Klaus, and the corridor in March where those became one, the colleague who listed 3 structural flaws and was right about all 3. You think about what it costs to be told the truth by people who expect you to improve from it. You tell her no, you wouldn't change it. She nods. That is the end of that. She doesn't say she's relieved or that she'd hoped you'd say that. The answer was sufficient. She goes back to her book. You still get the pizza box bin wrong about once a month. She still corrects you without irritation the way you'd explain something to someone who simply hasn't encountered the information yet. You still listen. The drawer closes flush every time because someone measured it correctly. You are still learning what it means to live inside a place that trusted you enough to tell you the truth. You have not finished learning. That turns out to be the point.